Hello everyone, and welcome to the third chapter of my introduction to ZBrush. Let's jump right into it. We've waited so long to get started with Krabby. All right, so this is the square we had, but I feel like this is like too much polygons already. So let's open a new project. So hit your comma key or click on the lightbox button, and then we open up this Dynamesh Sphere 64. Nope, we don't want to change. Save. Okay. Let's get rid of the floor. That's less polygons. Looks good. Okay. So now I take my move brush because we can make like big changes to the surface. And what I want to do is I want to make it look like some kind of a square shape from the front, and like an oval shape on like an ellipse from the side. Because Krabby has this kind of box shape when you look at it. But of course, a real crab has like some kind of upward tilt. And then we have like the legs here. And then the arms at the front. And maybe like his little ears or whatever that is. And eyes. It's a beautiful drawing. Okay, but this is what I want to achieve, right? If we have to place all the legs at the bottom, I think it just will not look as good. And like I said, I want to mix this kind of design of Krabby with a more like realistic approach. And then we have this kind of, I think this kind of tilt helps to sell that. So this is what I'm trying to do. Okay. Just the move brush. It's a very, very powerful brush, and you have to get like used to it. And for me, especially in the beginning, it like really helps to play with this like draw size slider a lot. Of course, the smaller you go, the tinier the area of effect will be. So I use like the move brush with a quite big size like most of the time, but not always. It's something you just have to get used to. It's the same for when someone, let's smooth this out a little, when someone learns to draw, right? If you look at someone who has been drawing for years, then they can draw a whole figure or a whole face with just a few lines, and it looks awesome. And it's the same for sculpting. The more you get used to the tools, the more you'll be able to do. So you have to get in this kind of comfort zone on your own. All right. Let's smooth this out as well. I'm using the move with Alt here to push it like to the camera. I think that's okay for a start. Yeah. So now that we moved like all these polygons around, you see that the polygons up here like are a little more dense, and on the side they're quite stretched out. So when we started this project, it was called a Dynamesh Sphere 64. So what's a Dynamesh? Dynamesh means that this mesh is dynamic and we can recalculate the mesh when we want. So all we have to do, you see that Dynamesh is turned on here on the top. So when we want to calculate our mesh again, all we have to do is press Control, and then you see that that our brush gets like yellow and it says mask. But if you just do it on the canvas, so just drag and release, you see that we now have a more dense mesh, right? So let's go back, Control Z. Now the polygons are stretched out. And when we click Control and drag on the canvas and release, the whole topology of our mesh gets recalculated. And this is super powerful because you don't have to care about polygons at all. Now I could move them out, crazy as that. Polygons are like extremely stretched. Then just press Control, drag and release. And we have like a dense polygon mesh. Again, we can continue from here. So you're extremely free in whatever kind of shape you create. So we won't need that for now. But this is how Dynamesh works. So every time we feel like we don't have enough resolution to draw, we can just re-Dynamesh our object. This is super powerful. Okay. So now when we pressed Control, the cursor said like mask, because Control is actually the masking tool. If we don't drag like on the canvas, if we would like draw on our object, we would actually paint a mask, because when we press Control, the mask pen is activated. So what is a mask? With a mask, we can protect an area. So now this area is masked. And if I would use like my move brush, you see that I move everything but this kind of masked area. This is really, really cool. And we can use it to our advantage for sculpting. So maybe for the little antenna he has on top. So let's just go to the top. Like these little thingies here, whatever they are, ears maybe. But I don't think that crabs have ears. Okay, so we just hit Control. Now we have our mask brush activated, and then we draw like little circles here. And now this area is protected. But we wanted like the exact opposite effect, right? We want to use these. So what we can do is we can invert our mask by Control clicking on the canvas. Now everything is masked except the mask we just painted. So again, Control click on the canvas to invert the mask. Let's do that again. When you have a mask and you want to get rid of it, you can press Control, click on the canvas, just draw a mask, release, and then we don't have a mask anymore. But wait, it was the same for like dynameshing the object, right? It's different. When you have an active mask, you will not dynamesh the object. You will first clear the mask and then you could dynamesh the object. Okay, let me show that to you really quick. So let's say we have made a change. Cool. But now we have an active mask down here. So first, when we just click drag and release, the mask will be cleared. And now when we press Control, drag and release, now Dynamesh is applied. Okay. Let's go back to these little antennas we wanted to draw. Let's draw these circles again. And then invert the mask by Control clicking on the canvas. And what we do now is we use the move tool and we actually make it like quite big. And then we can move them out. We could also use Alt to move them like straight up. And now we can use our smooth brush to smooth them out a little. Now we just Control, click release on the canvas to get rid of our mask. And we now have these little ears. It's kind of funny. Okay. So the next thing we could do with mask is this kind of mouth area. You see that when we get in here, these kind of line. It seems like we have like separate parts, like the upper part and the lower body. So let's try to separate them with a mask. So we kind of draw a mask here. He has like these teeth to the side. Okay. Maybe we make brush a little smaller. Now let's invert the mask. Then we can like sharpen these teeth to get this kind of shape I was talking about, right? These like teeth, mouth area, teeth, just like here. Okay. So this looks good. So let's go to our move brush again, make the draw size big. I use Alt to move it like into my direction and now move it out. Now we can invert the mask by control clicking on the canvas. And then we move that in a little to make this edge more crisp. Okay, I like that. So I'll press Control, click drag on the canvas to release the mask. Then maybe push this in a little. And I use the smooth brush to clean up this edge. Okay. And then we can do a Dynamesh with Control, drag, release. Actually, I liked it more before. Yeah, let's keep it that way. Sometimes when you do a Dynamesh, everything gets like smoothed out like too much. So that's not what we want right now. And I will talk about, we can go for a higher resolution, but I will talk about Dynamesh resolution at a later stage. So let's continue for now. Okay. For the mockup, this will be fine. Now it's time to add legs, I think. No, before we add the legs, I think it's important to talk about like this lower part of his body and how we will, or where the legs will be like attached. So what we do is we switch to the third brush we've learned, and that's the clay. That's on 3 on my keyboard. And let's talk about what we want his arms and legs to be. In the Krabby design, his arms are here on the side. And again, this does make like any sense if we go for a more realistic approach. So I think I would place them like down below. When we look at Krabby from the front, he has like these 2 thingies down here, whatever they are. But I think we will use this from the original design and then place his arms here. I think this could work. So this is where the arms will be. And then we have 8 legs. And I think like the last pair of the legs is like here on the back. Then we have 1, 2, 3 more. Something like that. This is where his arms will be. Then we have leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, and leg 4. Yeah, I think this will work. But maybe it's like tilted too strong, right? If you look at it, we would now see like too much of the belly. So let's use the move brush and do some changes to the proportions. I think this is why the move brush is like so super, super powerful. You can make these kind of big changes, even though you're quite into the process and the creation process already. But this is also why I like to work on a low resolution. We still have like a very low amount of polygons, and making like these changes to a low polygon mesh is always easier than to a high polygon mesh. Okay, I think this is better. Yeah. So I guess when we use the clay brush, his eyes will be like somewhere here. I don't know if I want to really use these like comic style eyes. I think they're hard to do when we like sculpt. Maybe it's like more of an ellipse kind of shape like this. Yeah, let's leave him there for now, like smooth it out. Just very, very slightly, knowing that they're there. Okay. Cool. Let's create some legs. So when we go to our tool palette, and if the tool palette is not here for some reason, you find it here on the upper menu, and then just click on this little button to dock the tool palette into the tray. Then we click on subtools, and we see we only have one tool. So we can, it's called append here. We can append more subtools to it. So let's just do that. Let's click on append. And when you move your mouse upwards, this menu vanishes immediately. You have to move your cursor like to the side. And then we want a sphere. And now we have a sphere in our scene, but we can't see it. It's just it's poking through a little bit. So we will select it from our subtool palette. And now we have selected in the editor. And then we can click on transform, on transparent to see it better. Okay. So now we can activate like this transform mode I've talked about, I guess in the second chapter. So we hit R, and now this transform gizmo pops up. And then we can use these arrows to move it into like any direction we want. All the arrows you see are for navigation for like all kind of move transformations. So when I click here, it will always move the sphere depending on the camera. You see they always are the same. So depending on where I move the camera, I can use these to position the sphere where I want. So in most cases, I do not use these arrows. In most cases, I use this kind of box around the gizmo. Okay, so this is for movement. We then have these circles for rotation into the X, Z, and Y axis, or around the X, Z, and Y axis. But we don't need that because it's a sphere. It will always look the same when we rotate it. So we just leave it like that. And then these other three are for transformation. transform along Y, X, and Z. And this one in the middle just scales like the whole object. So this is very powerful as well. So let's just scale it down a little, then move it over. And we will not start with the hands, we'll start with the legs. Move it down. Something like that. Okay. So when we have it positioned like that, let's go back into our draw mode by hitting Q. And now this sphere has like a very high density of polygons. So, I mean, it's okay for now, but we want to turn this into a Dynamesh as well. So you can create a project as a Dynamesh, but we also can turn like any object we load into a scene into a Dynamesh as well. So all we have to do is like click on this button. But you see by default, the resolution is quite high. So we do, I think, the same resolution as for our main body, which is 64. So we just click in here, type 64, and then we activate it. And then you see we now have a much lower resolution for our sphere now. So I just press Shift F to not see like this polyframe mode. And then I think we use also the move tool to move it like into position a little. Like so. I think this very first part of the leg, I mean, you barely see it here, right? It's just enough to move the leg a little away from the body. And now I want to extend this part by quite a lot and then Dynamesh it again. But I do not want to move like everything. So what we can do is draw a mask. So we can either like press Control and draw the mask onto our object, or when we not hover like over our object, but instead hover like in the editor, we can draw a rectangle, mask like half of our sphere off, and then we can like move the other part. So let's do that again. Let's get rid of the mask. I hit Control, click and drag on the canvas, and then I get this kind of box. So we mask like half of it off, and now we only move this part here. So I think for Krabby, it goes like to the side. Let's have a look how I did it like for the real crab. Same, it goes like a little to the side, then up, down. Let's move it up like so. And you see like we stretch these polygons a lot and it looks like really, really, really messy. But when we use like Dynamesh again, Control and then click and drag on the canvas to release the mask, and then again to do the Dynamesh, now we have a mesh again we can work with. This is super cool. All right. So let's draw this, you know, that we see like this very little bit thing here. And then we have one part, one down, and then the foot. And this is what we want to do as well. I have this one part here, second one, then one down. I don't know if we want to turn this foot like sideways. I think like inwards, like a normal crab would be better. And I think I like that more. Yeah, I think this is better. Okay. So let's do this little trick again. We can also mask the part we want to move and then invert the mask by control clicking on the canvas. And then we like move it down. No, this doesn't work because this would get like really, really thin. So let's get back. What we can do is we can now use our transpose tool again. So let's hit R, and now we have this transpose gizmo. So now we can move it, turn it into any direction. But the problem is, let's go back, Control Z. The problem is that it's like centered around here, like where the object axis is, and not where our active like area is. So what we can do is we can press on this little lock here. Now it's unlocked. And then we can move it over just to like this area where our mask ends. Then we lock it again. And now when we turn, we actually move it from that point, which is really, really cool. So I will just do that. Get into drawing mode again with Q. Release the mask, Dynamesh. Now it's like clean again. And then we can do the same with this lower part. Press R to get the transpose tool back. And now we can just move it down. Get back into drawing mode with Q. Release the mask. Dynamesh. Nice. And let's do this again. So we control click on the canvas to mask this area. Then control click on the canvas to invert it. Then we hit R to bring our gizmo back. Then we can unlock it, place it where we want it, lock it again, then turn it around. And now I won't move it. Let's keep it there. Go back into draw mode with Q. Control click on the canvas to release the mask. Control click and drag on the canvas to Dynamesh it. And now all I do, we don't even need a mask for that. We can just use the move brush and move it where we want it, like so. Okay. I think this is good for a start. Maybe your legs are like a little thinner or maybe too thin. So what we can do then is use an inflate brush. That's 6 on my keyboard. You can just draw over them and make it thicker. So maybe for some of you, the legs were like too thin. Then you can just press 6 with the inflate and then go over it. Dynamesh, smoothen it out as much as you want. The more you smooth, the thinner it will get. You can smooth it a little to make it more pointy. So this looks okay. All right. I think actually that this is a little too high. That's something fun. That's what we can do. So we can mask like most of the leg, invert the mask, press R to get our gizmo back, and then move it to the starting point of the leg. Lock it, and then we can move it up. Yeah, I think that's better. Release the mask, Dynamesh. Beautiful. Okay. Let me drink something here. And I think it's also good to save the project in between. I think that's also a good idea. So you can hit quick save over here. That just performs a quick save. ZBrush has like its own quick save folder. And when ZBrush crashes, it sometimes is able to recover your files and then they are saved into the quick save folder. Or we can save our project manually by going up here to File, Save As, and then save our whole project to where we want to save it. Okay. So now we have only one leg, but we need like a couple more. So what we will do is we will copy it. And we will use the transpose tool again. So let's hit R. And then before like clicking anything here, hold Control. And then we click and move it down. Nice. So now we have a second one. I'll do it again. So when we just move it, we would move it. But when we hold down Control, and now we click to move it, it creates a second one and masks off the other. This is really, really cool. So now we can just, unlock this gizmo, place it, lock it, like even rotate this leg a little. And now we have 2 legs. Nice. So let's do this again. Press Control, move it down, rotate it a little. Press Control, move it down, rotate it a little. And I will also scale this leg down because the legs on the back are smaller. Okay, so now we go back to draw mode. Like these 3 legs are still masked, so we can clear the mask by just pressing Control and drag on the canvas. Nice. Cool, and then we can use our move tool to move everything into position. And I think we don't need this transparent mode anymore. Looks kind of funny. All right. Now when I want to move this leg, you see that I'm also moving the leg below as well. And the bigger my brush gets, the more I will move maybe something I don't want to move at all. So there is another move brush in my interface that you can access very, very easily. So on 2, we have move, and on Alt 2, we have move topological. And what that did was, you see that this kind of button was activated. Now when we move, we only move polygons that are connected. So these are not connected. These are one subtool, but they are different objects, right? Because they're not connected. So now with this move topological brush, we can move all of that like we want easily. Maybe make like one like bigger. So we have like this nice kind of curve. Okay. So the cool thing is there is a way to mirror all of them over. And that's also in my interface. So you press Alt A, and then you see under geometry, there are like 2 buttons. One is mirror, that mirrors the object. And the other one is mirror and weld. So it will mirror and then kind of blend like both sides. Woohoo! So now we have 8 legs. Looks pretty cool. And works quite well. So now we need the hands. Okay. So what we will do, I think, let's create like his claws first. I think they're like most important. Then we place the claws and then we do like his arms. So for that, we create another object again. So we go back to our subtool to append and then hit on sphere. We click on the sphere in our subtool palette, activate transparency so we can see it better. Then press R to get the transform gizmo. Then we move the sphere where we want it. No, we won't. We will keep it centered because I think it's better to create this claw in symmetry and then place it into position. Yes, I think that's better. So let's go into draw mode. Don't need transparency. Yeah, I think this is the best way to do it. Now we want to create this claw, and I think we will start with this like upper part. From the side, we have this kind of shape. Okay. And then maybe we can just copy this and use it for like the lower part. Something like that. Yeah. Okay. So now that we have attached this new sphere, the symmetry mode is not activated. So we have to activate it by pressing X. Okay, cool. So what if you've created your object, but maybe you've sculpted your whole crab like from the side? There's a bunch of ways to do this, because when I now would want to work on this, like X symmetry doesn't do it. But what you can do is you can just click on your object, go for, and I think manual rotation will not be good, or yeah, it can be good. So just activate your transpose tool by hitting R, and then you can rotate your head. And while rotating, you press Shift to snap it to some degrees. And that works like really, really well. And then this kind of X symmetry for the sphere should work like perfectly. So I was just wondering if this sphere is really like in the center, because it looked like a little weird with this like dynamic perspective turned on. So I just turned it off to see if the sphere is really like in the center, but it is. It just looked weird. Okay, so now I just want to concentrate on the sphere. So I'll turn on the solo mode. All right, let's move it to the side. We can see that here. And then we use our move brush on 2, very big, to create this kind of shape. Okay. And I think this is very good practice to try to create a shape like this just with the move tool. Just shows how powerful it is. And this is why I believe that you only need like a few brushes and you can create quite a lot inside a ZBrush. Okay, I think this starts to look good. But again, we have like quite stretched polygons. So let's turn this into a Dynamesh as well. Let's go for 64, activate it. And now the mesh is very, very even. Can even use like the move with Alt to move this area inwards. And when I decide on how big I want my my brush to be, I think these like lines really help. But also this comes like with experience, like this constant adjustment of size. So if I'm too fast for you, just stop, take your time, and then create these shapes. Okay, just to move brush and smooth. Smooth. Yeah, I like it. So let's see. that's a big claw. So let's scale it down by hitting R and then click on this square in the middle. And then let's move this into position. It's almost as big as the body, right? If we look at it. Oops. You see, when you have symmetry activated and you now click on your object, it actually tries to perform this kind of transpose action on both sides. So what we have to do is click X to turn off the symmetry. Then we can position this claw where we want it. But I think before we do that, I just wanted to turn it to the side to check the size, and I think that it's cool. I think that's okay. So turn it back. Into the center. If you've placed it somewhere here, I don't know, and it's way off, right? And you want to have it back in your center, then you can go into your tool palette. It's not project. Is it here in no, geometry. It's not in the subtool palette, it's under geometry. And then position. Then you can just position it on 0, 0, 0. But now it's still rotated. I thought you could like change the rotation here as well. I see, okay. I do a lot of stuff without thinking too much about them. So let's go back and tell you like what I did. So I just used like 2 buttons. The first one is go to unmask like mesh center. So I clicked this one to have my gizmo back in the center of my object. And then I clicked on this rotation button to reset the mesh rotation. And then I got it all back. So this is what I did. So I think this is a problem for like most mentors. If you've worked with a program for a very long time, you kind of have this curse of knowledge. So you know all this stuff and you use it all the time. And then it's very, very hard to put yourself in a position of not knowing. And I always try to put myself in this position to be able to explain everything. But sometimes you just saw it. I just click on stuff because I just don't think about it anymore. Okay. So now we have, I think the claw has the right size. And then now I want to use this kind of trick we used for the legs as well. And kind of copy this part to create the lower part of the claw. And I do this actually a lot when creating stuff in 3D because it saves a lot of time. Imagine now we would have to create like another sphere, append the sphere, move it, position it and everything. But now we can just hold Control, move it down. Now we can rotate it 90 degrees and hold Shift, 180. It's not perfectly in the center. Why is it not centered now? Was it not the... it was not in the mesh center. Okay, so I just clicked on go to unmasked mesh center again. Now I move it down rotate it 180. I scale it a little bit. And you see this already kind of looks good because it speaks the same kind of design language, right? With these kind of edges we have here. But it's not, this is not how the claw looks like. I actually like this, but we will tweak it with the move tool. Now I just moved it and saw that I don't have symmetry activated. So I'll just hit X. And now we can like make the changes. Okay, so now we can dynamesh this. But before we do, we will press Alt A and click on Auto Groups. And now both of these parts will have a different group assigned. We will get more into polygroups in the next chapter. But this is very, very important because now we can click these groups button on Dynamesh. And now when we Dynamesh, it dynameshes like the parts without merging them together. So this is very important. If we would turn it off, it would merge both parts together. If we turn it on, then they're still separated. All right. So let's tweak this a little. I think that looks good, and we need this kind of I have to turn on symmetry. This kind of curve down here. Yeah, I think that's good. I like it. Okay, cool. And now when we click on R, we can actually move them both into position. Yeah. Turn off symmetry mode. And then we kind of rotate the hand where we want it to be. I think something like that. Having his arm kind of here. This is how it looks from the front. I think that could work. Put it more down, so. All right. Cool. So now we use the same technique we used for the legs to create his arms. So we append a sphere, select it on a subtool palette, activate transparency mode to see it better, press R, scale the sphere down, position it where you want it. And this one has a lot of polygons. So we'll create a Dynamesh again, 64, boom. Then we just move this into position, Dynamesh it. These are like very strong arms. Something like that. I use the inflate to make this part like thicker. I wonder why I can't click through it. I think it's possible when we click on Ghost. Yeah. Now we can change the positioning of his arm. Even though there's like one object in front of it. Okay. Still looks a little weird. But this is just the mockup. We can fine tune this later. I think this is how it works. I think I'll inflate this upper part a little more. It seems like too thin. But I think his arms are even thinner, right? I think that's okay for now. Cool. So now we do the same thing for the legs. We just mirror it over with mirror and weld. And we can alt click on the claw to select it or select it in here, but I like clicking on it in our editor or on our canvas. Do the same here, mirror and weld. And now we have our crabby mockup. You know, I actually don't like the eyes. They do not work. So what if, well, this is actually like too much. Let's get the clay brush with Alt pressed. Let's make some like little holes in here. What if we do like more realistic eyes? Let's try that. I want to see if it works. So let's append another sphere. Same again. Let's activate the sphere. Move it into position. Scale it down. Scale it down even more. Then we create a Dynamesh for this eye. We use our move brush, Dynamesh it to get more resolution. Dynamesh again. I press like 6 for the inflate. Dynamesh again. Something like that. Maybe it has to be like a little thinner, so I use the smooth here. Now we press mirror and weld. Alt A. I actually think this is kind of cute. But maybe let's move them a little more. Symmetry is not activated. Let's activate it by pressing X. Maybe they have to be like more together. No, this looks weird. I think they have like the right distance, but it looks weird because these antennas are like too close together. Or maybe I think we'll move them out more. Yeah, I actually like this better. Kind of follows this line here. It's even stronger for like the original design, right? If you look at that. I think that works. But now that they are curved, it looks like the little devil. So let's not curve them. Let's move them up a little, like so. All right. I think this is a good mock-up for our Krabby. And we only used 4 brushes, 5 brushes with smooth. Or if we don't count like selection and masking. But I think this is just a few tools, and we actually got this far. This is kind of cool. And if we would zoom out now, you see that this works. And this is what I like about like mockups. You know, it's a very, very simple mesh. It's very low resolution, but everything is in place. And this is how I always start. And I think most people rush into it like too fast, and they get into like details too quickly. And this is why I like this is why I like this kind of Dynamesh workflow, because we cannot apply more details because we don't have like more resolution. We would have to increase the resolution manually. And this is why Dynamesh is so cool. You have to keep the resolution low, and only when you cannot add any details anymore, then you increase the resolution. And we will do that in the next chapter. See you in the next chapter.